The college football experience, Florida State Seminoles 2025 schedule release and coaching hire episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Edge Boost. Yes, earn up to $750 per month on your sports gambling transactions. Go to edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Rhythm is giving away a $250 future and throwing a March Madness party in Las Vegas that I will be at. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/party for all the details. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride.
Hey, what's up, you degenerate gamblers? This is Bill Burr, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride, baby.
Yes. Woo! Welcome to the college football experience. Florida State Seminoles 2025 schedule release. And we're going to talk about the coaching hires that they've brought in, the coordinator hires at the offensive defensive positions there. But wow, I mean, we're talking college football. It's February. What's not to like? The chat is talking about it. You can watch this show, youtube.com/the college experience. Get on over there and hit that like and subscribe button. If you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, that's fair. My name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I want this pilot. It's a matter of national security.
Oh, boy. I think I was the only one of us to cash on the under. I don't remember what you did. I know I took the under, but I
have to go back and check. I'm not sure.
I thought you took the over last year, but here we are talking Florida State Seminole football. I am joined by my co-host, the DFS god himself. Give it up for the rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, tobacco road living, the free lot giving, farmer, Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. What's going on, man?
I mean, it's always football season on the college experience.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm watching old games from '92. I watched the Miami, Florida State, 91, 92 in the past couple weeks.
I think Florida State wishes they could go back to 92.
Woo. Well, they did get robbed of the playoffs, 2 years ago, completely robbed. Just the committee still hasn't earned my respect from that decision, but here we are. And I feel like, where are you at with Mike Norvell, man? I got slides here. Get on over here, youtube.com/the college experience. Where are you at with Mike Norvell and these Florida State Seminoles? Because you look and you say, man, he's 33-27 in 5 years at Florida State. Your first reaction to that is like, he needs to be fired because this is Florida State. But he could have won a national championship 2 years ago had they, had an injury not happened, or had the committee, I know everyone would say they would have got killed in the playoffs, but you got to play the games.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, we saw that beat Florida at Florida, took down Louisville in the ACC championship with, depleted at the quarterback spot. But where
it's not like we like Florida State. We're not Florida State fans, but they should have been in the playoff that year. But I was thinking about this, and the crazy thing is that how do you follow up a 13-0 regular season with a 2-10 regular season? Like, if you look at all the other top schools, you don't see Ohio State dipping down that low on a down year. You don't see Bama or Georgia, even TCU.
Yeah.
Who, came up and had, played in the national championship game. They had a bad year. It was like 5-7 bad. It wasn't 2-10 bad where your only FBS win was against Cal because Cal's kicker missed 2 second-half field goals. It was unbelievable how bad they were last year. So while you would think Norvell came into the year on very, very firm ground, now you can't have another year like last year. You just can't.
Yeah, and that's where it gets tricky. What would you say? Like, okay, so we have timing might save Norvell here because these schools are gonna have to pay the players soon. So a buyout on a big contract, it seems less likely these days than before. Also, we knew, I guess money's not an issue anymore because, but he makes $10 million a year till 2031. So that would be what right there. If you fired him after 25, maybe you could get you owe him $50 million then.
So you're saying he made $5 million per win last year, huh?
Well, when you put it like that,
has to be the most in the nation. $5 million per win.
That's he's a genius. His agent's a fucking genius. When you put it like that, that makes a lot of sense. Now, obviously, they've been very active in the portal. There's something they've done, and this is something that I think is should be mentioned with how do you follow up with the 2-win season, because he had built that previous team in the transfer portal. Their whole team. Trey Benson, Oregon, even their quarterback was at Louisville. Jordan Travis at one point was at Louisville. Their wideouts, Johnny Wilson was from Arizona State. The other wideout, Keon Coleman from Michigan State. Their O-line was, UTEP, Colorado, Duke, like guys from all over. Their defensive line, Jared Verse from Albany, a great player in the FCS, comes in. The other guy, Fisk from Western Michigan. Linebacker, the corner, Fentrell Cypress from Virginia. They had just loaded up in the portal, and they tried to do it again last year with DJU. And to me, I think that's the bigger storyline here is I think they try to do it. It's hit or miss. Sometimes your evaluation of the talent can be wrong. And that I think had a big thing to do with their failure on the football field a year ago. And they're kind of back at it again this year, bringing in Thomas Castellanos, the quarterback from Boston College, who I do think in Mike Norvell's system, and we'll talk about this in a second, I think the shoe fits in a way. Now, Castellanos was previously at UCF, right? Which I find a little bit of irony because they went and hired the sitting coach from UCF as their OC.
And they were there together, with Malzahn.
But you wonder, so Castellanos comes in. They bring in, or they were able to Douglas, the tight end, who was going to leave, but he was at Arizona State, so he's still there. He was going to hit the portal again, but I think they retained him. And then they've been active adding some pieces. I don't know that any as big as the previous. There's no Keon Coleman that I see coming in. Where I was high on him at Michigan State. Now I didn't think he'd be as good as he was at Florida State, but I knew Johnny Wilson was a player. There's none of that thus far. Maybe they've been just recruiting better, but
right. I'm not getting excited over Squirrel White, even though he's got a great name. It's not like he did much at Tennessee, so I mean, maybe some of these guys that maybe we're not familiar with, they're going to step in. I mean, Deuce Robinson, the receiver from USC. Okay. He,
Did we freeze up? Here? Okay.
Well, that's not a good start.
Yeah. Deuce Robinson, you were saying we're coming over from USC, and then you got cut off. What happened?
Yeah. So I mean, the receivers last year were not very good. Nobody on that entire offense was very good last year. DJU sucked. The offensive line struggled mightily. The run game went nowhere. The pass catchers were invisible. And if you look in the portal, the two guys they got at the wideout position, Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White, serviceable maybe. Certainly, not striking fear in the heart of defensive coordinators. So they are going to live and die by the portal again. And to your point with Castellanos, while he's flashed at times with the right offensive coordinator, maybe he will do well. let's not forget he was benched last year for Grayson James and basically quit on his team. So I don't think it's like a slam dunk that he's going to come in there and do what Jordan Travis was doing a couple years ago.
Yeah. Now, the surprising thing I would say is they were able to basically do the Ohio State thing and pluck a sitting Power 5 head coach to be their offensive coordinator. First off, I wanted to get your opinion on this though. With that buyout, 1 to 10, what would you say the hot seat is for Norvell? Because I kind of think he's, with them having to pay the players in the next year, I don't know that they will buy out a $50 million.
Yeah, I think he's good for at least one more year. I mean, it kind of depends on if they go 2-10 again, they might find a way to shit can his ass. But I don't think the year is going to be that bad. I mean, it can't be that bad, can it? I mean, I think Florida State is going to be at least around 500. And given the fact that he was coming off that 13-0 season, the season before that, he won 10 games. I think he's good for at least one more. And maybe he can turn it around quickly. He did that before.
Yeah. Now he goes out and hires a guy that he used to work for, and Gus Malzahn, which I put the Saudi Arabia State logo here because to pluck a sitting Power 5 head coach, very impressive. Very impressive. That means you have money. The thing is so Gus Malzahn's 105-62 as a head coach at Arkansas State, Auburn, and UCF, but he has had back-to-back losing seasons at UCF. However, I was ready to. I remember I was very high on UCF last year. I ate a ton of shit on UCF. KJ Jefferson, I thought was going to be like 2.0 edition of Cam Newton with Malzahn. No, that was terrible. So I was ready to kind of bag on him, but
who was worse last year, DJU or KJ Jefferson?
That's a good point. Money changes a person. But so they had gone to the backup. I forget what week in Orlando there, but Malzahn had got rid of KJ Jefferson. I want to say by like week 6, they were already onto the backups.
Right.
However, I was ready to bag on him, but UCF still finished with the 14th best offense in the country. Yeah. So what is this? What do you make of this hire? Like, I was ready to kind of be like, I don't know. Like before, when he was at Auburn, he had the advantage of they were paying players when a lot of other schools weren't paying players.
Yeah. Well,
and now I'm like, I don't know. He still coaches an offense that, now I will say this, they're not known for throwing the ball. They're just known for, all this tricky stuff, option read stuff. And, he puts up numbers. He gets guys open.
Right. Well, it's a good thing though if Thomas Castellanos is your quarterback, but because he's not the most prolific passer either. But I mean, Alex Atkins, the previous offensive coordinator, he had to go because Florida State's offense last year, I mean, any way you want to look at it, dead last in scoring offense in the ACC, dead last in rushing offense, dead last in passing offense. Absolutely an awful year. He was decent the couple of years before that, like nationally, those Florida State teams, the ones that won double-digit games, they were in like the teens, the offense was. But after that abysmal of a season, you knew heads were going to roll. So it made sense that Atkins got fired. Atkins is the guy who took over for Kenny Dillingham when Dillingham went to Oregon. So you knew a change was coming there. And it sure seems like, I mean, I think Gus Malzahn is a much better offensive coordinator than Atkins. So yeah, I think this gives hope for Knoll Nation.
Now, Matt Dix in the chat, Florida State's offense was not 14th. UCF's offense was 14th in the nation. Florida State's offense.
It was 131st in the nation.
I was about to say, yeah. I mean, only Kent State had a worse offense, and I find it fitting that Kent State's on the schedule this year.
Yeah. Take the under.
I mean, I was shocked. How shocked were you that a sitting head coach? Now, I will say this: UCF, Malzahn was entering the season on the hot seat at UCF. I don't know that he would have survived the next year with 2 straight losing seasons, especially where that program was. Is this unlike Chip Kelly was soundly safe at UCLA? I feel like for at least another 2 years, entering the Big Ten. So I was shocked by the Chip Kelly thing just because it seemed like he just hated the administration. I'm out. Malzahn, I think, might have just been, hey, I'm going to be fired in a year. Let me get out. Yeah. It's a
That's
little
right.
different.
He's trying to outrun the executioner. But yeah, to go in state, to go from Big 12 to ACC, I mean that's a parallel move right there. But obviously stepping down from head coach to OC is definitely. I mean, I guess we're going to see it more often, maybe, but very surprising. Yes.
Yeah, folks, we're going to talk about what they did on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, the prediction's obvious. Yes, the offense will be better. But before we get to the defensive side of the ball, I want to tell you that we are part of the college football experience, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and gear up for March Madness with March Madness. Promo code Madness for 20% off everything in the SGPN store. You can get a I Wagered Today T-shirt. You can get a Pick Dundee, a college football experience, a college basketball experience hoodie. Doesn't matter. There's a bunch of great stuff over there. Get yourself a dog. We even got a great dog bowl. All right, get in now before the promo code is done. Once again, promo code is Madness for 20% off everything in the SGPN store. Celebrate Merch Madness with us and let it ride. We're also brought to you by Edge Boost. SGPN has partnered up with Edge Boost, the premier Visa debit card for bettors. An Edge Boost card allows you to avoid the hassle of having your card denied at the sportsbook, DFS site, sweepstakes site, racetrack, or casino. Plus, you can earn up to $750 per month in cashback rewards for using your Edge Boost card. And your money is safe as the card is FDIC insured. And the best part is no credit checks, and it is completely free. So sign up today. Use the promo code SGPN so you get better cashback rewards and instant tier 2 status. That's edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. That's edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by mybookie.ag. MyBookie is your place to bet every single sport. Plus, there's props for every game, and the Live Dealer Casino is a bundle of fun. And MyBookie accepts customers from a ton of different locations. You can easily deposit and get lightning fast payouts using crypto. So head on over to mybookie.ag, promo code TCESGPN for 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a little $10 casino chip. That's mybookie.ag, promo code TCESGPN. All right, we are back. And Gus Malzahn will be the offensive coordinator for the Florida State Seminoles in 2025. The defensive coordinator is Tony White. Tony White, I was surprised at this, man, to tell you the truth. Now, Matt Rule has a background as a defensive guy. So maybe Matt Rule was more, sitting head coach in Nebraska was just okay because Nebraska's got money.
You would think they would have equivalent money to Florida State, especially with those Big Ten checks coming in.
Well, that's why it was shocking. You saw Tom Allen, sitting head coach of Penn State, leave for Clemson. I'm sorry, sitting defense coordinator for Penn State, leave for Clemson. Tony White, sitting DC for Nebraska, head to Florida State. And you start to say, hey, interesting. This disparity that they keep every fucking platform saying, they're not going to be able to compete. Well, for whatever reason, he is now the defensive coordinator at Florida State. And prior to Nebraska, he had, he's a Rocky Long guy. He was at Syracuse and then Arizona State prior to that. And I believe if you go before that, I think it was San Diego State. But Tony White comes in and how shocked were you on this hire? Because I was pretty shocked. I'm much like the Tom Allen when I was like, whoa, they were able to pluck a sitting DC, and it seemed like Nebraska's defense wasn't really the problem a year ago.
And I guess you could argue, Florida State's defense last year, the run defense was really bad, but they had a good pass defense. And the previous DC, Adam Fuller, had been with Norvell his entire stint at Florida State and did some good things there. So I was kind of surprised that both coordinators got the axe, especially when the offense last year put the defense in so much bad situations. If you just had a halfway decent offense, your defensive stats are going to improve by leaps and bounds. So I was kind of surprised they fired Fuller from the get-go. But then
I think he had to, though. He might have just had to. Then the fans probably wanted change.
It's almost like some heads are going to roll, and he's not going to fire himself, so he's going to fire his coordinators. So I guess so. But to get Tony White, I think it was a good get. I think these are two good hires. These are known commodities in the college football business. I don't know if any of us really knew who Alex Atkins or Adam Fuller were. They're kind of no-name coordinators, which is fine. But these guys are known. These guys are experienced. I think both of them can step in and improve, the line of scrimmage on offense and defense.
Yeah, Nebraska was 18th in defense a season ago. Now, some of that I will say was a very kind schedule. some of it, the defense was definitely the strong suit of that team. And Matt, I'm going to push back a little bit. I thought Tony White did a good job at Syracuse. I see him in the chat there talking about he was terrible at Syracuse. I thought that the minute he left Syracuse, the defense got much worse.
Yeah, I thought when he was with Babers there, he was there for the good years.
Yeah, I believe he was, man. I now Arizona State, maybe they would have been all over the place. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check the Arizona State one, but I can tell you the San Diego State and Rocky Long, getting coached by Rocky Long, Bronco Mendenhall. I mean, we have a slew of guys that have come from the school of Rocky Long that have been pretty good defensive minds.
Oh, one more stat. I forgot to mention this. It's a funny stat. So Florida State's defense last year, dead last in forcing turnovers. They forced only 6 turnovers on the entire season. Is that crazy? Is that crazy or what?
At Florida State.
At Florida State. So you know what? Maybe they did need a new DC.
I mean, that's just incredible when you think about the Florida State we grew up with whether it's Primetime, Terrell Buckley, Samari Roll, Peter Boulware.
Oh yeah.
So many great fucking players. Like Derek Brooks. I mean, you could just go on and on and on about Derek Alexander. So many great fucking defensive players have came from Florida State. Sam Cowart. Like what? 6 turnovers? Mind-boggling. So what do you grade this one? You think this is an A+ higher? If you're a Seminole fan, Malzahn and White coming in there, are you buying into this season?
I think the Malzahn hire is more of a slam dunk than this one. But is there a chance whenever you bring in like big name assistants, is there a chance of like personalities clashing? I mean, Ohio State brought in their big name assistants, and now they're both gone. Now it worked last year; they won the national championship. But are these guys long-term solutions? Are they more stopgap? I don't know, but I do think they were both good hires, and I think the coaching staff has been upgraded this offseason.
Yeah. All right. Well, and by the way, hopefully this past season was so bad that you actually caught this guy was reading a book again. Follow us on Instagram at TCE on SGPN. There's a photo from this season where he shows up and he's reading a book in like it almost looks like it's raining slightly, but he's reading a book just as they're getting their ass kicked.
And this year he wasn't wearing any pants.
Oh, one of the greatest moments in college football there. Look, before we get to the schedule, because that's really what this episode's about. We want to talk about the big news in the offseason, which Florida State definitely. We're not going to do this for every single team, but we wanted to talk about the schedule for everyone. We will talk about every single team's preview in the summer. All 136 this year, 136 FBS teams. But before we do that, I want to let the good people out there know that the college football experience is brought to you by Rhythm. Yes, Rhythm is throwing an epic March Madness party. And guess what? You're invited. All Rhythm users are invited to a first 4 watch party Wednesday, March 19th at the Awesome Stadium Swim at Circa in Las Vegas. Myself, Stacking the Money Green, Real Money Kramer, the Bet Detective will all be live from Circa Stadium Swim hosting a show. Like a watch party show there. So check it out. Free drinks. Plus you get to hang out with, all those guys. And it gets better. Rhythm is also giving away a $250 March Madness future for one random lucky Rhythm user. If you can't make the party, don't worry. You can still hit with the future bet. Just sign up for your 7-day free trial period at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. So come by. Use Rhythm to help you fill out your bracket and make some bets while you're there. A free party plus a chance to $250 future bet, free cocktails. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/party for the details. Once again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/party for all those details. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes. Right now, every night, college hoops, we're in the thick of it. There's just an edge you can find in college hoops you can't find elsewhere. And the same can be said for all the other sports and, NBA, NHL, NASCAR, MMA, UFL, CFL. I'm playing all that stuff in the off season. Let's golf. And right now there's a Luka discount for every Lakers game for the rest of the regular season. Also for football diehards, this is just, you want to talk about an edge. Pick 'em projections for select players' 40-yard dash times during this week's NFL Combine. Unbelievable. Show your level of DGen by getting over there and do that. So sign up, and when you do, sign up with that promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com promo code TCESGPN. All right, now I let's get to what I think is the meat of this episode, the schedule. All right, like schedule is such a big factor, especially you get these 19 team conferences. I go back and listen to last year's Indiana preview, or was it Big Ten, where I said, Indiana could actually make the playoffs with that schedule. Now, I wasn't betting on them to make the playoffs, but the schedule was so key. I had Louisville the year that Florida State beat Louisville in the ACC championship. I had Louisville winning the ACC championship, and it was basically based off of the schedule. The schedule plays such a huge role.
Last year, keep it in the ACC, Syracuse. We saw Syracuse schedule like, you know what? They could have a nice year. They won
SMU too. Yeah.
What Syracuse win 9 games?
Yeah, they were 1 game out. Had they not dropped that game at Stanford, they would have been in the ACC championship. The schedule matters. So YouTube.com/the college experience. We got the schedule here. Florida State's 2025 schedule just released a couple weeks ago. And the first thing I note is, wow, a non-con with Alabama and Florida, right? But at the same time, Texas A&M Commerce just started their program a few years ago, and Kent State is I think they're a mid-level FCS program. They were winless a year ago. So you kind of got 2 FCSs, but damn if you don't have 2 Power 5s and 10 Power 5s in total.
If you play at Bama and Florida, then you can take the other 2 games off. I don't mind the very easy games if you play Bama and Florida. That Bama game, that's in Tallahassee, right?
In Tallahassee, it's beautiful. On there. I know it's the font is a little small. I should probably enlarge that, but yeah, we opened the season August 30th. Alabama, who obviously, Kalen DeBoer, fans weren't necessarily happy with last season. So you want to talk about a pressure game out the gate.
He's already bitching that they're broke and they can't afford players, You
didn't have to take the job. You're not broke. I can tell you that. You're not broke, Kalen DeBoer. This is their athletic director that I think did more of the bitching. He also is bitching about court storming and field storming, which is just ridiculous. August 30th, though, you kind of look at this game and see, Nick, as a pivotal game for the hot seat. Now, I don't think they would fire either of these coaches in the next year, but the seat will definitely be hotter to the loser of this game because it's such a pivotal game out the gate. I mean, you got to like Alabama in this matchup, right?
I think you have to. I mean, you look at what the teams, who they were last year, what they have coming back, what they got in the portal. I will say Florida State had won 4 straight regular season games versus the SEC until they lost to Florida last year. So they beat LSU a couple times. They were doing pretty good against the SEC until last year, until that bowl game against Georgia. But it's hard to go against Bama here.
Love this game on campus and not in some neutral bullshit. Yes. College football should always be on campus. So 0-1 just off the top. I mean, I just want to, we're going to dive into this over the summer and give our bet, like a deeper prediction. But I was right there. I'm just like, oh, that's a tough draw there. You get Commerce after that. You in Tallahassee, that's a win. Then you get a bye week. Do you like the bye week on September 13th?
No, way too early. Have that later in the year. I mean, I guess you get 2 bye weeks these days, so it's not as critical as it was a few years ago, but that's still pretty darn early. And right after East Texas A&M, right before Kent State, that doesn't really do you any favors.
Yeah. And then you head on a Friday night to Charlottesville, Virginia. And I'll be honest, Tony Elliott's in a pivotal year, but they threw some money into football this offseason. Got some. They brought in the transfer from Chandler Morris, who's been in college for 20 fucking years.
From North Texas. Well, even before that game starts, Florida State is going to equal their win total of last year. They are beating East Texas A&M. They are beating Kent State. There's your 2 wins. Now they have a chance on the road in not a hostile environment to go ahead and surpass your win total from a season ago. It's an interesting game because UVA could win this. If Florida State hasn't improved that much, I mean, Florida State wasn't beating anybody last year. So it's an interesting game. I guess I'd lean Seminoles.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, look,
the talent level is so much higher.
And the coordinator hires, I think, will definitely the quality of team will be better this year. But
yeah,
Virginia, I do think is a bowl team this year. I think they're a bowl team. So and the sneaky spot is that is before I know that you get an extra day because that's a Friday night, not a Saturday. You got the Miami game next, and the Miami game to me is always a fascinating game, even when they're blowouts, just because of the magnitude here. But Miami coming to Tallahassee on October 4th. And then Pitt coming to Tallahassee. Do you think they will drop one of those three right there between Virginia, Miami, and Pitt?
Yes. I mean, well, so Miami's got a bye week before that too. Now that is a nicely positioned bye week. So 3 games under your belt, you get a bye before going into Tallahassee. I think they drop either the Miami or the Pittsburgh game.
Or maybe the Virginia. Maybe it's like 95 again with Warwick Dunn right at the 1 yard line.
Very, very possible, but I'm going to give them that one. So I think we're and then at Stanford is a little tricky, but Stanford's one of the worst teams in the nation. I mean, I think you're feeling pretty good if you're 4-2 at the halfway point of the season. And I think that's very realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get a bye week October 25th. And then you're hosting Wake Forest, which, no more Dave Clawson, Jake Dickert. Interesting hire.
I will say Norvell is 1-2 against Wake Forest while at Florida State.
Yeah, Clawson's gone though.
True.
And I just think
they're going to.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Then this is the part of the schedule where I say, whoa. And
it's tough.
At Clemson, who obviously we just talked about them bringing in Tom Allen. They return maybe the best quarterback in the nation. This is a loss. I don't have them going into Clemson and getting this done.
Nope. I don't think they're there yet. No, sir.
And then home to Virginia Tech. Now this is a pivotal one. I'm doing a Virginia Tech episode next week about their coordinator hires. Brent Pride, definition of the hot seat.
A lot of coaches on the hot seat just in these games we're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, Tony Elliott, you could even argue Cristobal, Narduzzi. So you're right. So then you got the Hokies and you're at NC State in Carter Finley, which is me and you went to a game back when they had Jimbo where NC State caught them. This place is a lit environment. And that's on a Friday, right?
Yeah. Like you said, last 4 games to have 3 tough road trips. Not the way you want to end the year. And I think Florida State, realistically, they might drop all 3 of them.
And then you're at the Swamp to end the season. So to me, I just want to key on this for a second. So who do they miss in the ACC? They don't play. Well, first from the start, they don't play Notre Dame, right? Which is the fringe thing. But also, they do not play SMU, who was a playoff team a year ago. Okay, that's a good thing, right?
Or Louisville, yep.
Or Louisville, who has been one of the better programs the past couple of years. But the other side of that coin is you don't get Boston College, right?
Well, they get Wake, Stanford, and UVA, which are arguably the 3 worst teams.
Yeah. And you don't get Syracuse, who seems to be the momentum's building some.
Yeah.
No
Duke.
No Cal.
No North Carolina.
Yeah. So when I was doing this exercise, I thought this was a harder schedule than I thought it would be. Coming into it, I thought this is a good rebound opportunity. I think it's a harder schedule than last year. Would you agree to that?
I think so. I think I would. But at the same time, I think it's fairly manageable. And I look at it and I see like a 7-5 team here.
Well, I don't know. Florida State fans won't be happy with 7-5.
After 2-10?
Sure, but still 13-1 and then 10 wins prior to that. 7-5 will get you. I mean, I don't know if it'll get you fired this year, but
no, I think 7-5 gives Norvell another year for sure.
Yeah. So you don't think they're even sniffing the playoffs at 7-5?
No. I have to see more consistency from Castellanos before I can buy that.
See, I think the problem is the road trips are at UVA, at Stanford, at Clemson, at NC State, at Florida. I think there's 3 losses in those road trips.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I will say this: if Florida, Napier is on the definition of the hot seat.
Another hot seat coach.
He could
now
be fired by then.
With Lagway year 2, it looked like maybe Florida was starting to turn a corner last year.
That could be a much more winnable game than it looks right now. But still, even with me saying that, 3 losses on the road, the home games to me of Bama, Miami, Pitt, and Virginia Tech, they're all losable.
Sure. We saw just what defined losable for Florida State last year, and it was pretty much anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Fascinating schedule in a way. I thought coming into it, I thought it was going to be easier. Did you have a projection of like what you thought? And then when you saw it, you said, you know what, this is a harder schedule than I thought.
Well, no, I mean, because I saw, 2 SEC teams out of conference, and I saw them playing arguably the 2 best teams in the ACC. So right there, it's a challenging enough of a schedule for a team that was very bad last year. Now, February 28th, I threw out 7-5 because it's fun. Why not make a prediction? What's your record prediction here?
Well, and then another thing is, I think short of Texas A&M Commerce and FCS opponent, Kent State will not be bowling. Wake Forest and Stanford will probably not be bowling, but everyone else that we're going to play, I expect to be a bowl team. Final projection, I'll say Alabama's a loss. And that, like I said, this might change by the time summer comes around. So if you're putting this weight, when we do our 136 team previews, the 136 episodes, it might be different. But I'll say
Matt Dick says 8-4.
Yeah, I'm going to say Bama loss. The ones I feel pretty confident about right now are Bama, Florida, Clemson, and I'm going to say there's going to be one over there, one more in there. Yeah, I'm going to say 8-4 as well. Give me 8-4.
A little bit higher than me. Okay.
Well, I just don't know what to expect. Castellanos does remind me in a way of Jordan Travis.
He does. I agree.
So I think that might, that's just so much better than DJU in a way. DJU didn't fit that. He's not a runner.
Right.
He doesn't fit that. The
problem with him is he's not a runner, and he's also not a very good passer.
He's not a thrower either. He's just.
so what is he?
And he's come. And I was shocked that he didn't come back to college for another year and cash in.
Yeah,
like, I'm going pro. Well,
you're really making like $100,000 for like some Sunbelt school or something. Why not?
You're going pro in what?
You got a tight end or something?
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on there. You got a job working down at the mill? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I mean, and I'm curious to see what this win total jumps. I'm fascinated when these win totals come out. Now they won't be out for a couple
I
months.
think it came out. No,
really?
I want to say I saw a tweet within the last couple of days. I can't pull it up now, but I think it came out. Now I wasn't looking specifically at Florida State. I saw Duke's one, which I think is 6.5. I was like, over on that. But what do you think it'll be if you were setting the number?
I think they might do 8.5 because of the history of Florida State. I think they might.
I'd sign me up for the under all day if you're telling me 8.5.
I'm just quickly Googling this to see if I can find this, but 7.5 at FanDuel.
Okay. Well, hey, I mean, I said 7. You and Matt said 8. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to come down to worst case. Let's do best case scenario and worst case scenario before we leave. Best case scenario, 10-2.
I mean, I guess so. I mean, they won at least 10 games 2 years in a row before last year. So can they flip that switch back on? I mean, it's not like, they could. Some of these teams, like we have them losing maybe to NC State and Florida. It's not like those are great teams. They could definitely beat Miami at home. If they split Miami and Bama, then they're in a pretty good shape. I mean, they could enter they could be going into that Clemson game a 1-loss team.
Yeah.
So I say best case scenario 10-2. I'm buying.
Now, worst case scenario. 10-2 will get you in the playoffs, by the way. 10-2 will get you in the playoffs. So fans should still have the expectations that we could be a playoff team. Worst
case scenario, I would think a normal person would say like 6-6, but worst case scenario, see last year.
The coordinators are better. I'm going to say worst case scenario, I think they're beating Commerce. They're beating Kent State, and I think they're beating Wake Forest and Stanford. I'm going to say worst case scenario is 4-8.
Yeah, that's more realistic. They're not going 2-10 again.
Yeah.
They're going to have a better year. I'm pretty darn confident Florida State's going to be bowling. I don't think they're ready to compete for the ACC just yet. But I think they will be bowling, and I think that will be enough for Norvell to come back again in 2026.
There we go, folks. Give us a follow. We're breaking down Virginia Tech will be talked about next week. That'll be we're even got an insider over there in Blacksburg that will be talking to us, and then we'll be talking a few other teams, specifically ACC first. Then we'll jump over to some other conferences. But yeah, give NC Nick a follow on Twitter at NC__NICK. I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. The College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN, and make sure you subscribe year-round college football talk, youtube.com/the college experience. We also have the college basketball experience. It's rolling along every single night of the season. We do a show. So from November 2nd until even prior to that, we were doing conference previews really since like October 15th. We have gone live every single night talking college hoops. I know Leonard Hamilton is being sued by half the fucking team right now. He's forced into retirement or whatever. We'll see what Florida State does next in basketball. But check out the college basketball experience. Maybe Leonard Hamilton gets hot in the ACC tournament. We saw NC State do it last year. Also, check out the college baseball experience. Florida State, historic baseball program. Check out the college baseball experience. Just dropped an episode last night previewing all the weekend's action. So go check out those. Also, the FCS college football experience for Texas A&M Commerce fans, or East Texas A&M, whatever the fuck you want to say. But we're just getting started here, folks. Till next time, this is the college football experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And the whole team's looking and the whole world's looking with the cameras. Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot. And you know